Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Empower Podcast. This is officially Psy Week 2025. And I'm not here alone. We have two other guests. Feel free to introduce yourselves. We're going to start with Ozone.
How you doing? I'm Ozone Conan from New Orleans. Here to enjoy this fine psychedelic conference on psychedelic science.
And I'm here representing Young Powers Associates, David Powers, and Young Health Tech, and JP&A Interdependence.
All right. Yeah, so our goal was to be at the Psychedelic Science Conference this year. What is so is we are all still in our locations, creating our own. Really seeing, not alone, but together, what it's like when consciousness meets consciousness meets consciousness. At least for now. But if you're listening, then you are that other consciousness. The future of mental health, medicine, and consciousness is psychedelic. It's going to be your discovery and your sharing over the next few episodes here that can truly make a difference in your communities at large. Knowing that and stepping into it, at the Denver Psychedelic Science Conference for 2025, they have over 7,000 attendees and more than 600 speakers. We give you 3. And of that, we give you the most recent within the industry. You have a registered nurse. You have a social worker. And you have a community member just like everyone else around here. And this here being planet Earth. So we're going to go into acknowledgments here. Ozone?
I would like to acknowledge Dr. Tina Thomas and the mentorship that she has been in my life as far as on this path to doing psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. Now a social worker looking to do the next step and go through the post-grad program. So looking into that right now, really excited. But acknowledge it for, say, like with All Flags, my nonprofit that, and right now, I guess that's going to lead it over to David Powers of Young and Associates. Here you go, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. My business partner, Brett Zelli. We're here representing Ionia Health Tech. We're here for those who are low income, homeless, and veterans coming back to our communities and then supporting our communities however that is. What is so is over 30,000 people right now are homeless and we're veterans. I know we were coming past the 250th year of military special. Veterans aren't getting the VA benefits and the needs to be met. And that's something that we want to tackle. And being homeless, having PSTD and all of that, and not having a place to live. You can call yourself yours. So we want to change that. Not everyone wants to live in a tiny home, but everyone deserves a home. Everyone deserves a place to call their own. And we want to change that too. we're about halfway there, about getting our 12 over 1,200 acre property in Tennessee, in Winfield, Tennessee, for recreation, sustainable farming, and our things out in the woods and the mountains to get away from city life and be able to recreate. And I'll pass it on to Brett.
Yeah, no. I'm glad we get to start off with this, because it's really, I think, in our acknowledgments that we really see ourselves, or at least where we want to put ourselves. And it's in that. It's our sense of being. It's our use of our consciousness in another manner of creation, you know? So it's quite something to step into these. I'm just very moved. I'm moved by that part of this. And it's amazing because it's coming on Psy Week out of all the times I've recorded, not to discount any other guests in any way, shape, or form. What gets me is to see what it occurs for those outside of myself that I think are really, truly impactful too. And we're up against policy. Let's really dive in here. What's really happening with psychedelics? You know, what is so? What's working? What's not working? Is we have psychedelic policy that's been in place for a long time, even back in the 60s, and even back thousands of years. They probably had their own, but I haven't heard any of that in the history books. So, but it's been that conversation, you know, that we definitely are looking to shift from not just it being a promise, but it also being a practice. And I think when you've appeared before Ozone 2, you've talked also on adjunctive therapy and the promise that you really see in that. And also on mine. I agree as a practitioner myself. I really don't see psychedelics being used one way or therapy just being used one way. But I definitely, not only personal experience, but from that I've had shared by my peers, that they even see more promise. And aside from you two, Ozone, you know, for other people who do see that, adjunct therapy, I think, will be a deciding factor for some people. Some people will want the traditional Western medicine approach, a pill for whatever that is, and then you go from there, while others may want to be able to look into what has been here a long time, what has, not just because of time, meaning that it is efficient by any means, shape, or form, but also by that time, how it's been used throughout societies and what it looks like in those. Because that's also what is so aside from Western civilization. So let's all talk more. I really want to see if we can start off here with the traditional culture and political divides, I think. How does that sound? And policy. You are, yeah.
So the point of questions listed here is, what does it take to make these therapies accessible and effective and safe? And how do current policies help or hinder this progress? How do we navigate tension between scientific evidence, patient advocacy, and public perception? And what is truly needed to make psychedelic healing a sustainable part of our mental health landscape? And beyond policymakers, who else needs to be at the table? Well, you know who needs to be at the table? Nurses. Because they really administer all the drugs that the doctors prescribe. In my experience being a patient for the last 45 years of neurological medicines, the doctor came in for 15 minutes, prescribed something, and let the technicians do what they needed to do. The nurses, the technicians, all of that. So that is what we need. We need the people who actually administer whatever medicines are there. And Brett has the experience. He's a licensed nurse, and Ozone knows it through anecdotal evidence and being a licensed social worker.
Yeah, and Burning Man. I want to transition popcorn over to you, Ozone.
Yeah. As well,
Yeah, please. After all that trying, I know you were looking to share and want to hear it. Again, the what is it? The traditional culture and political divides around it, and then just anything else that occurred for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say something in response to the traditional culture political divide, because we have this dissonance between generations. We have the generations like my parents who were born in the 50s and grew up and heard one thing, and then their parents that were in a different place. So there was of course, with the introduction of psychedelics into society, and then the quick prohibition of these substances by the government, which, they've been doing the research. I mean, the research is what it is, and we can get into that, but a lot of it is stigmata. It's first of all, we need to reform mental health in general. There are people that will just not go get any type of help because they have a fear, first of all, of what does that mean? They don't even know. They think that going and getting help is going to put a label on them that they're going to carry around on top of their head or something, and people are going to throw eggs at them because that's the way they act. When in reality, we should be treating, first of all, mental health holistically. Holistic health care means we look at everything. That's what social work is. We look at all the systems. We see what's affecting what. We isolate the issue or the thing to the system so that at that point, either system can be changed to get desired effect, or a system can be eliminated and replaced with something else that's more beneficial of the client's choosing. Like, that's basically social work in a nutshell. I can't tell you what I see that you need. You can only ask me what I can do to get you there, and I have to determine will it harm you or others. And at that point, sky's the limit, really, unless it's not possible, in which then we start talking about delusions. I mean, it's really simple at that point. Either we can do it or we can't. And that's the thing is with psychedelics, it's possibilities. The psychedelics it opens the consciousness. And that's why they call it light, or, there's different terminologies depending on your social circles and your experience and things of that nature. But, all these things have meaning, and it wouldn't be called something if it wasn't that. And so, at that point, you have to utilize it properly because, just like anything else, knowledge without understanding leads to all kind of problematic things, meaning self-destruction, hurting others without even realizing it. And that's where we were in the state of our society now, and we're just trying to help people that want help. And, through these, like, to answer the question, does everybody need psychedelics? No, but not everybody needs anything. It's not a everybody one size fits all type of thing. If first of all, as a therapist, as a social worker, I'm going to advocate for non-medical interventions, first of all, because the key to this is learning how to deal with things without the medicine. If the medicine is necessary, then of course you want to use medication. But I mean, medication wasn't supposed to be, now you're on it for the rest of your life, because now you're compounding these things with other things, and it becomes this mess of pills, and you don't know if you're coming or going before you leave. That's all. I mean, like, that's not the quality of life I like, or I would choose, and then I know people on the other side of the spectrum, which are all, I won't touch anything that's like not natural. And so at that point, you're looking at homeopathic, natural remedies, witchcraft, or whatever you want to call it. But natural plant medicines were basically what witchcraft was crafted out of through literature. So, but until we do that, we're not going to until we get rid of that stigmata of the mental health and start treating mental health like we do physical health, meaning that we do preventative care. We do harm reduction. It's not ignore it till it becomes so problematic that now your life is too far gone to be able to fix, because now you've accepted those U lenses for so long you don't see anything else, right? And that's the whole key to it, is that really you're the only one that can tell you if what you want to do or think is true or not. If I tell you something, you still have to decide whether or not you think that is truth, and if you trust me to go with that information. So I can't tell you what you can or can't do. Only you can tell you what you can or can't do, and only you can know what you want to do. And so, at that point, we would be able to get past some of those preconceived problematic roadblocks, or whatever you want to call the imprints that don't serve this time, place, and space. What was once known to be truth and facts, now we know is not. And so, we have to go with the times. And right now, these medicines can be utilized to persons that have these serious traumas and things. It's not like, hey, the average person with no trauma and no illnesses to deal with. No, maybe they don't need to be doing psychedelics unless they, for whatever reason. But in a therapeutic sense, everyone can use mind opening therapy to some degree. So whether that, and that's going to go depending on what type of therapy, whether it's whatever the issue or the thing may be, is what I'm saying. Like, you can't just say, well, mushrooms do this and boom, it's going to cure this and it's a cure-all. No. The person, first of all, has to want help and then utilize it in the context that we've already tried. Everything that's non-medical, everything else, we've proven that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt these things they're effective, but they're not quite getting that person to where they need to be. That is where we start exploring the possibility of introducing something of that nature, because it is dangerous to an extent. And that's why you want people that know what they're doing and care about people to be doing those things. And that's why it's such a gatekeeper kind of thing, because, you can do harm. As a social worker, first tenet, do no harm. If anything that goes against that computer programming of being a social worker, that lens. And once you look through a social worker lens, you can't not look through a social worker lens. It's pretty big lens, You maybe if you were floating down in the river of denial going through Egypt, I don't know. Other than that,
denial's not a river.
Wow.
Doing a dead man float,
Yeah. But no, I'm really getting the impact. I'm getting the impact you're seeing out of all of this.
Great.
It's not just
So what are your thoughts, Brett?
Yeah. So again, I think it's more on the impact, right? We're seeing the overall impact of that, and then the influence that has on people's deciding. That taboo factor of seeing this, and it's almost as if, well, it's in the defense spending bill for veterans. The VA's been working on it for the last few years. So if somebody has to see if there is fear around it, well, the U.S. government, I'm not saying the U.S. government has to be the end-all, be-all, but if you are a U.S. citizen, your government, your tax dollars are now being used for the potentialities of this. And if it's being used on humans, why can't it be used on humans? We want to say they're humans because they're veterans, or they're not, and we're not because they are? Like, what is that a distinction there? What's the message to be sent? The whole, not just looking at the body as a whole, right, as to whatever it may be, but how others may have those areas of relatedness, right? Specific substances, just like we give specific drugs for specific reasons. Usually that's one of the things to look for, is if you're giving it correctly or if it is an off-label usage. And here's the other one. I mean, if we have traditional medicines now that exist, then that have off-label usages, are psychedelics going to be able to have that? They are still a drug. They're still, I believe, one of the locks and keys in our brains, and we have over 70. And of those, we're told which ones we can and cannot use through legislation throughout the world. And I'm a proponent also for cognitive liberty. I think we can literally grow our cognition as to what it is we want to be able to create. And sometimes it may come from a psychedelic experience with therapy. Again, and maybe not. Maybe being able to meditate consistently also. I think there's other ways to get into these spaces besides just psychedelics. I'm not saying that they can't be, again, of an assistant, but it's not doing all the work. And I'm glad you said that, Ozone, is these aren't, you don't just do this and then it's done.
I don't think it's an either or thing. I think it's you have to do these things and then you build on it. It's not if that is going to work, it's how effective is this, and at what degree do we need to go a little further, a little deeper, do a little more, It's not in lieu of. These things you would have to have the mindful awareness and everything to be able to participate effectively in a program like that. So there would be a program before the program, really, for me, getting people ready and vetting the fact that they're ready for that. I personally would not just throw someone straight into that type of therapy without first of all educating them and making sure they're ready for that. That's advanced level therapy. That's not walking off the street therapy. If you need to have done some work and have understandings to get to a point where that's going to be receptible.
Yep.
I could enroll you in an advanced Greek class, but I bet you won't understand a word they say.
Yeah?
Unless you know Greek, I'm just saying.
Or you want to learn Greek. They could try to teach it to you, and yeah.
So, let's say that's level 3. Level 1 would be, like simple interventions with like simple mindful awareness and things of that nature to be able to like help cognition and so that would bring in journaling. That would bring in other things that like holistically are going to help so much more that it just becomes ingrained. And so at that point, you have to document everything very thoroughly. So all the experiences and all that, the person has to be used to do. If they can't document for me before, they can't document, then I'm not going to go any further. That's just telling me this person isn't ready because they don't want to know enough about themselves or don't care to put in their own time. So at that point, it's not like I may want to say I want to do things, and I may even do the things, but then do I really want to, or am I just saying that for whatever reason?
Yeah, is it for them? And then also, are we leading a horse to running water, and does it want to drink? And it's up to that too. Yeah. I want to acknowledge Stan Groff. If you haven't checked out Stan Groff, listeners, he was a psychiatrist with more than 60 years of experience in research of what's called holotropic states of consciousness. So these are large and important subgroups of non-ordinary states that have healing, transformative, and evolutionary potential, according to Stan. Now, Stan was also a principal investigator in a research program at the Psychiatric Research Institute in Prague. Say that 10 times fast. That also in Czechoslovakia, was a chief of psychiatric research at Maryland Psychiatric Center, an assistant professor of psychiatrics at Johns Hopkins, and a scholar in residence in Big Sur, California. Stan Groff has also been known and has sat through over 4,500 client LSD sessions. Did meet up with also Albert Hoffman. If you haven't checked out Albert Hoffman, definitely an individual that has had an impact too. Lots of these pioneers here. Also, for those who have not heard of Stan Groff, he also has over 150 articles in professional journals, including Psychology of the Future, The Cosmic Game, Holotropic Breath, and many others. I definitely think he's been an individual, again, based mainly out of the United States. At this time, I saw him at the Psychedelic Science Conference in June of 2023, but started over in Europe, started over outside of Western world, and discovered what it is would become his life work. And I think stepping into that, being one of the pioneers, I think, to acknowledge this has been going on. Stan was born in 1931, got his MD in 57, PhD in 65, still is a believer in adjunctive therapy, still is looking in on what it means to truly care for someone, to truly see them for themselves and not let time get in the way. Because, Ozone, I'm glad you mentioned this. In these sessions, when someone is on a psychedelic, there's so much that comes out. It's almost like the fire hydrant was at a slow, nice, steady stream that was super small, and you put these in there, and it is full open. It's like they're flushing out the fire hydrants for the summer, or whatever. So, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of value, and I think it's really to be not only the space for them to allow you to be there, because there's a whole process about consent when it comes to that too, especially when under the influence, but allowing them to also absorb what it is they can, and then you being there for backup, because those may be the conversations afterwards. This is theory too, that can really truly make that impact. And they go, oh shoot, I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember that, but I was in the middle of this. There were these macaroni shapes that were floating around my eyeballs, but I do remember that going on, and I did share that with you. That was literally 12 hours ago. How did you remember that? And it's because they were in another area, and we could call, from what I've discovered and what's been shared too, where you sit right now listening to this episode, unless you're under the influence of another substance, you are in what's called the default mode network. It's almost like a program. You just turned on your laptop, and you're there. Or if those who have watched or played a video game, again, not sponsorship, there's one called Assassin's Creed, the loading screen. And once you're past this loading screen, there's a lot more going on. But again, that's only part of this process. A lot of this too, I think, even from not only my personal experience, but from what I've heard from others, it's those intentions that you set during that part of this part of healing as well. And in the time where you're at speaking with an individual, not under the influence of them. So it's going to see, it's in theory too, there was even governmental research being done on psychedelics back in the 60s at Tulane University too, Ozone, on MK Ultra.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. You want to speak a little bit on MK Ultra, or did I say anything that was coming up for either one of you? Dive right in.
MK Ultra. Let's see.
Yeah, it was a government research that was done to see if psychedelics and mind control were a thing.
Well, I saw the movie, I think, but I didn't realize it was based out of a research at Tulane.
Within the last year, I learned it was at Tulane, Ozone. Yeah, no, full circle. So, and for those,
I got a friend that his artist name is MK Ultra.
Interesting.
and for those who don't know, Ozone graduated from Tulane University. Full circle. So, are they still doing that experiment, Ozone, or do you have a non-disclosure?
I cannot confirm nor
Deny.
allegations because I do not know, I cannot recall, and I do not remember, sir, and that's all I got to say.
And you also are not at liberty to say.
If I were not at liberty, I could not say anything anyway, sir. No.
So current practices, current policies, are they helping? Are they hindering progress? Is it creating tension? Is it allowing us to create scientific evidence? And through that, then, a public perception of not only the practitioner being there for the patient, but also then the patient allowing them to be their own advocate and for the medical system to lean back.
Well, there you go. You got the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, on MK Ultra. It was released on December 28th, 2022.
And took place back in the 60s.
Yep.
Let's talk on that. Do you think that big gap hindered or helped progress?
Well, I don't know if it hindered or helped progress, but what it did was the CIA used a lot of different universities and other people, including Senator Ted Kennedy, to experiment on people to see what kind of things could happen using alternative techniques and medicines. And whether that was legal or not, we have a society that doesn't like to expose the dark corners of society. And a lot of that has to do with the funding of such activities. Because if the government's allowed to do it, why isn't the rest of the population? And I think that's the biggest issue that I come across. I think the military has a lot of different things that the average person does not know. I mean, so torture and brainwashing?
Yes. They were researching to see if psychedelics had this potential over therapeutic use. That's what was going on, in my opinion. This is my theory, but yes.
I know, that's exactly what it's saying here in the paper.
We have to theoretically remember also, there was the 60s going on, first of all. A lot of war, a lot of other things going on, a lot of emotions playing.
This started in 1945.
Hold on, and also around this time, there was an individual who knew one of the famous Beach Boys and hung out with the Beach Boys and then became an American symbol that most people don't talk about anymore because he's passed away. and that's Charles Manson.
Wow.
So we have a full circle here as to what did occur in America and what has occurred in the world and what that can do for the people. And I don't know if it's maybe a bad story for the United States to have to talk about, but good, bad, or indifferent, it's having an impact, I think, on the therapeutic and holistic side of care. And last time I checked, there's that quote about, I have a quote about history. If we don't change history, we're doomed to repeat it.
But yes.
Yeah. All right. So this has officially been session 1 of Psy Week. I got 2 quotes here, and then I'm going to pass it off to David and Ozone, and we will be complete. And we will be recording again 2 other sessions this week. So stay tuned. If you're listening to this now, there'll be another one coming, and then one after that. This has been
On a regular at 1:30 on Fridays about the 14 areas of living. And we're happy to have Ozone join on Friday afternoon, as well as Knowles, which appeared last week. And we'll be able to discuss what occurs for different people in different parts of the country.
Yep. And that's sponsored by Yonia Health Tech. I'm going to get my 2 quotes here, and then we're going to pass around popcorn on quotes, and then we can close. So quotes I have. First, I want to quote Maria Sabina, which is, "Heal yourself with the kisses that the wind gives you and the hugs of the rain." And if you're not familiar with Maria Sabina, she was if not the pioneer when it came to psychedelic mushrooms being used by the white man. Second quote by Stan Groff. "Psychedelics are a catalyst or an amplifier of mental processes. If properly used, it could become something like the microscope or telescope of psychiatry." All right, who's next with the quote?
"Power is given only to those who dare to lower themselves and pick it up."
One more time, David.
"Power is given to those who dare to lower themselves and pick it up." And there's no one.
I'm going to go with 2 quotes to cover the spectrum here. One by the first mentionee that I had was Dr. Tina Thomas. And she says that you lose your right to complain if you refuse to change your brain. And so that's one. And the other one, because you bring up old Charlie, he said, if you're going to do something, do it well. Leave a sign and let the world know that you were there. And have a nice day.
All right, this has been the first session of Psy Week with All Flags, JP&A Interdependence, Yonia Health Tech, and the Empower Podcast. Thank you all, and bye for now.